Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Ithaqa's Bane, covering all manner of tabletop gaming. Please take a moment to like, subscribe and add comments, it would really help me out. And with that, let us begin. As gamers, we are blessed with a multitude of dungeon crawl games, whether they are large, expensive board games or the cheaper pen and paper book-based games such as 4 Against Darkness, D100 or Notequest. We are blessed. Now, in this video, I would like to bring to your attention a new dungeon crawler that has the potential to step up and stand with those three and make many Dungeon Delve players very happy. It's a pen and paper book style game which has a good number of supplements and expansions being planned for the future. I think the first expansion is due out very soon at the time of recording. We are taking a look at 2D6 Dungeons by Toby Lancaster at drgames. Now, at the time of recording, copies are being sent out to the Kickstarter backers. General release will be soon, again, at the time of recording. I will add a link in the description as soon as it's uploaded to places like DriveThruRPG. But before we continue, a quick disclaimer. I was involved in the early proofreading and playtesting, so please excuse any potential bias, but I liked what I saw back then, and now with the finished product, I really like what I see. Now, I have previously covered on the channel another game from drgames, Radzone, and the newer Radzone Totality. Really enjoyed those games. And in Radzone, we were actually introduced to Toby's love of tables. That game had a ton of tables, giving us a lot of variety, a lot of randomness to all kinds of game elements. And it was a lot of fun. If you haven't tried Radzone, well, I mean, the new version is Radzone Totality. I do recommend having a look at that game. It is a lot of fun. I'll put a link to my videos up here. Well, in 2D6 Dungeon, Toby's table lust continues with a whole book of tables. But the tables codex has loads of tables inside, and it does provide an incredible amount of variation in the rooms, the treasure, the encounters, and a lot more besides. But if you really, really, really don't like tables, this may not be the game for you. Now, let us have a quick overview of the game, and then we will proceed with an instructional playthrough over a number of different videos. Now, first of all, your goal is to complete all 10 levels of a dungeon, okay, with a single character, and that would make them legendary. The dungeon is created as you go, using tables and dice. For most things, you're only going to need to have 2 dice, hence the name 2D6 Dungeons. But yeah, you'll use those to generate random rooms, random corridors, types, contents, sizes, encounters. All these things are randomly generated using dice and tables. Now, this, let me move those out of the way for a second. This is actually the map or the dungeon for the first level when I first did the playtest. And it was a lot of fun. Randomly generated rooms, randomly generated sizes, contents, encounters, treasures, everything was in there, and it was a lot of fun. For the initial early play tests, we only had the first level of the dungeon. Inside the book, you have everything you need for all 10 levels. And they get harder and harder as you go down levels. You will find gems and coinage as you adventure. You can find armor and weapons as well, potions and scrolls, all of which will aid you in terms of the encounters that you're going to face. Now, at level 1, you are going to find the easiest creatures and easiest traps. But trust me, this game is still no walkover. Even at level 1, don't be surprised if your character dies. Now, the game does include cards. Now, in the books, there are a number of cards at the back, which I mean you could cut out, but I would highly recommend either photocopying or getting the PDF and printing them out. So there's in the back of the rule book, also in the back of the tables book, you've also got cards. Now, these cards are very, very useful, but they are not essential. They are just reference cards. There's no shuffling. You don't use the cards to generate random events, encounters, or anything like that. They're purely for reference. So I suppose you could just, reference them in the book when you need to. But I do find that actually having the cards separate, and again, I have actually printed out from the PDF. You can actually order physical cards from drgames, but you don't need to sleeve them either. I mean, I've just sleeved them because I've done 2 in 1. But you can actually just print and copy these out. But the thing is, you don't actually need them. You have 3 quick reference cards when you're doing combat. You have the fatigue and shift adjustment, which actually I think this would probably be the only one that is essential for the game. So you're going to need to use this in the actual combat itself. So I would recommend printing this one out. The reference cards, after a while, you probably won't need because they're only reference cards. And then the rest of the cards, you have 6 gods, you have 6 plants. Again, I've done these double-sided just to make it easier. And the rest of the cards are all creatures. They are the things that you can encounter and fight. And you've got all the way from level 1 creatures all the way to level 10 creatures. Now, we'll actually have a look at the cards a little bit later. Yeah, I made myself a little tuck box. I think on the Facebook group there is another tuck box, but I wanted to do it into just my little one here, so they'll go to one side for the moment. But like I say, I think the only one that is essential is the one that you're going to be using in combat. The creature cards, the god cards, the plant cards, you could probably just reference them from the book if you really wanted to. Now, don't be put off by all those cards. You're not going to be using all of them at any one time. Like I say, they are split up into different levels. So depending on which level of the dungeon you are, you're only going to be using cards from that level, maybe from 1 or 2 levels before. That's it. So you're not going to be using all the cards at one time. Likewise, if the if the phenomenal amount of tables in the book kind of makes you hesitant, again, don't worry, you're not going to be using all the tables, because again, they are split up into sections which are color coded. So yeah, like here you've got level 1 and level 2 tables, and then you've got level 3 and level 4 tables, level 5, level 6. So I mean, you're not going to be using all of them at the same time, and they are labeled very well. So like I say, don't worry. Now, this is an instructional playthrough and overview, so I'm not actually going to go through all of the rules and explain how it all works. I think, like I say, from my experience, I find instructional playthroughs a lot easier to understand how the game works. There is a fair amount of rules in here, not a huge amount, but there is a fair amount to learn. But like I say, I'm going to show you as we play how to do this. So character creation, I will show you as I create a character. Dungeon generation, I will show you as we go through the dungeon. I mean, the first thing you're going to need to do is create a character. And for that, you'll need the character sheet, which is in the back of the book. Again, you can photocopy and print, or you can use the PDF to print. I think there is also a version on the Facebook group as well. But you'll need the character sheet. Now the character sheet is technically 4 pages. That sounds like a lot, but it's fine. You can print on 2 sides like I've done here. You've got the basic your character's basic details here: name, level, health points, experience. You've got your statistics, which we'll go over shortly, your weapons and maneuvers, your armor, scrolls, and at the bottom you've got this legend status level tracker, where you basically keep a note of your progress through the dungeon, again with 1 character, yeah? When your character dies and you create a new character, they've got to start back at 1, yeah? But as you progress through the dungeon, level 1, level 2, level 3, and you get down to level 10, once you've completed level 10, you are classed as a legend. So that's just a tracker there. You will have different character levels as well, where you will get more hit points, you'll get different maneuvers, you'll get bonuses to your stats and things like that, yeah? What else? Over on the second page, you've got place to put your magic potions. There are 2 conditions that you need to keep track of. These can cause problems if you leave them for too long without, sorting yourself out. You got blooded and soaked, and these can actually hurt you if you don't, like I say, get rid of the blood, wash yourself, or dry yourself quick enough. Coinage here, treasure, prisoners found, side quests, and here at the bottom there's favor of the gods. You can actually ask favors of the gods, but to do that you need to actually obtain favor points, and these can actually be obtained during the game as you worship the gods in certain ways. Again, you'll see as we play the game. And then the third page, you've got a reference in terms of the large and heavy items that you're going to be carrying. You have a limit of 10 large and heavy items you can carry. So these are things like weapons, armor that you're not wearing, heavy items, rations, small items, there's no limit. And then on the last page, you've got an area for narrative moments where you can basically write the story, do a journal of what you're doing, and then your loot lockup in terms of your storage outside the dungeon. And when you leave the dungeon, you can kind of leave stuff in a lockup if you don't want to bring it with you. So, I mean, that's the character sheet. And there isn't actually much to do to create a character. You select a starting weapon. You've got a choice of 3. And you select your beginning maneuvers. Again, I'll explain that as I create the character. You choose a starting piece of armor. You get a potion of healing. You can get a scroll of your choice. You have a few scrolls that you can choose from. And then you fill out a few numbers for your stats. And that's basically it. There's no race selection, there's no dice rolling, there's no class of choice, there's no skill selection or ability generation or anything like that to actually be found here. It's actually a very simple way of creating a character. So, okay, let's create our character. So I'm gonna name my character, let's call him Bjorn. And he's going to start at level 1. All right, in the book, it gives you all the information about how to actually start a character in terms of your starting stats. So it says here, first add a character name and then write +2 in the shift box. So we've got shift here. Again, we'll explain all these a bit later. So we get +2 shift, +1 in the discipline box, +1. And then precision, we get a 0. So these are essentially your starting stats. The shift will help you in combat. Discipline will help you in other tests. Also precision as well. You also start with 10 health points. Trust me, that's not a lot. Especially when your basic weapons are doing D6, yeah? It's not a lot of health. Then we need to select a weapon. We've got a choice of 3, longsword, great axe, or heavy mace. You're limited in terms of how many weapons you can use in this game. That's a way how this game diverts from the norm, in that you stick to a single weapon for the whole duration. To quote Toby, you can't just pick up any weapon in the dungeon and expect to know its intricacies. So you stick to what you know best and wield the same weapon throughout your adventure. Now, this actually reminds me of I think it was called the Kensai class, from the old advanced D&D, AD&D, Oriental Adventures, where that character class had to stick with a single weapon for the entirety of their career. It's kind of like that. So basically it's saying that you can't just pick up a weapon and know how to use it effectively. So we're doing away with you can use any weapon. We're doing away with weapon proficiencies. You're basically sticking to the weapon that you know. Now, later on in the game, if I remember correctly, you can actually find runes to actually make your weapon better. So you pick one of those 3 weapons. You then go to the tables book and select 2 level 1 maneuvers and add them to our character sheet. Okay, so we will do that, and I'm going to use I've got a little bookmark, look, I'm going to put a bookmark in there for the moment. So we're going to go to the tables book, and we're looking for the maneuvers. Maneuvers, where are you? So again, this book is color-coded, the pages are color-coded to recognize each different section. So the weapons is in the first part here. So we've also got things like starting armor, starting scrolls. This is what you can choose from. Now your starting armor is pretty useless. And again, I'll explain how it works as we talk about the combat in a minute. You choose a starting scroll. Your starting potion will be a potion of healing. You don't get any choice in that. But down here on page 13, you have the weapon maneuvers. And you've got 3 choices: longsword, great axe, or heavy mace. And you've got 3 levels of maneuver. Now, the word level appears a lot in this game. You've got dungeon level, character level, weapon level. So be careful how you use the word levels. So you have 3 levels of maneuvers. And as you go up in level, so I can find it. I think it's in here. As you go up in level with your XP, you will also get access to higher level maneuvers, which obviously do more damage. Yeah. Now, whenever you go up a level, you can actually swap out and change your maneuvers, but you're limited in how many and what level maneuver you can actually choose from. So what I'm going to do for Bjorn, I'm going to choose the Great Axe as the weapon. So we're going to put that here. Great Axe. Now, in terms of maneuvers, we only get level 1 to begin with, and we can only select 2. Now, each weapon maneuver has a certain amount of damage that it does. Now, you'll notice that some of them are a lot better than others. Yeah? A chop, for example, does d6 minus 1. A weighted charge does d6 plus 3. Why the hell would you ever choose a d6 minus 1? Well, I'll tell you. You'll notice that each maneuver has different amounts of damage, and they have a different dice combination. This is what you have to roll on your dice. And you're rolling a d66 in combat, so you have to assign 1 as the primary and 1 as the secondary, or 1 for the tens, 1 for the units. And if your dice match the number here, then you achieve your maneuver and you do the damage. Now, because it's d66 and not 2d6, these values don't follow that sort of bell curve. In the case of, with a 2d6 roll, you get a 7 is more common than rolling a 2. But what you do have here is the ability to shift. One of your stats, called shift, allows you to change your dice in combat. Each point of shift allows you to move your dice up or down 1 point. Now, because of that, if you've got, for example here, weighted charge, it does the highest amount of damage, d6 plus 3, compared to d6 minus 1. Yeah, it does the most damage. Why wouldn't you pick that one and then incisive heft, which also does d6 plus 3? Well, the reason is it's harder to get those numbers, not because it's a 2d6 roll, no, but because it's harder to shift and get those values. When you roll your 2d6, you can only get to 1 from a 2. But you can get a 3 from a 2 or a 4. So it's easier to shift to these numbers here, 3s, 4s, 5s, than it is to shift to 1s or 6s, yeah, moving the dice up or down 1 or 2 points. That's why it's probably a good idea to have one of your choices of maneuver in this less damage range, because it will be easier for you to get these dice rolls, not from the dice roll itself, because it's all equal, but in terms of being able to shift to get those dice. Again, I'll explain more about how the shift mechanism works when we talk about combat. But yeah, it is highly recommended to get one of the basic attacks with less damage because it's more likely to happen. So we've got a great axe. I'm going to choose, now again, I do roll a lot of ones, so I could possibly get the sharp slash. But again, it's either one, having a 1 on the dice is going to make it harder to shift and obtain that. Whereas a 3 or 4 is going to be easier to kind of shift to. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose carve. Now the reason I'm choosing that is because it has a 4 and a 3, which means it's going to be easy for me to shift up or down to get those numbers. And it does d6 minus 1 damage. So what we do on the character sheet is I'm going to put down here, which one are we taking? We're taking carve. Okay, the dice set for that, for the carve, is a 4 and a 3. Now you do have to do it in sequence, yeah? A 4 and a 3. You can put the dots if you want, it's okay. Modifier is d6 minus 1 damage. d6 minus 1, okay. Now, like I say, it's a d66 roll, so you do have to say which one is first, which one is second. So that's where having 2 different coloured dice comes in. But like I say, the shift can allow you to push up and down. So this is a good choice to begin with to allow me to shift easier. Now, as you increase levels, your shift can increase eventually, and then you can pick slightly more risky maneuvers to do more damage. So I've got a safe option here, but I also want a high damage option just in case I do roll high or low. I mean, I do roll a lot of 1s. So I could choose the direct jab, which has d6 plus 1, which is a 2 and a 3. A sharp slash, which is a 1 and a 4. I think low swish, hack. I think I've got 3 and 4. Maybe 2 and 5. What's 2? 2 and 5 is low swish. Yeah, I'll go with that. So I'll go for the low swish. So low swish. That does d6 plus 1. And that is a 5 and 2. Now the reason I've chosen those is because basically then I've got everything except for 1 and 6 in the combo. But again, shifting will make all the difference. Now, like I mentioned just now, you have to roll these specific dice. So you have to assign 1 dice as primary, 1 dice as secondary. So it's a good idea to have different colors. You then roll the dice and you're trying to get this combination, but in the correct order. So if this is your primary dice, I'm going to have to get a 5 or a 4 to match my maneuver. If I assign this as my secondary dice, then this has to be a 3 or a 2 in order to achieve the maneuver. But you've got to have the right combination. At the moment, this is doing nothing because my maneuvers are 4-3, 5-2. Yeah? Now that's where this shift mechanism comes in. This allows you some manipulation of your dice. Each point of shift allows you to change the dice result up or down 1 pip. So, dice god forsaken bods like me can try and improve the typical bad rolls. So for example, like here, if I rolled this, at the moment it's not going to do anything because it doesn't match either of my maneuvers, but I have +2 shift. So what I can do is I can shift up or down 2 pips between the dice. So what I could do is I could shift once to this. That now gives me 4-3, which is my carve, and I would do d6 minus 1. But that would be a bad idea. Why? Because what I can also do for 1 pip is do that to do d6 plus 1 damage. That's a much better result. What if I rolled this? Well, this is going to present me with a few problems. I have the 3 that I need for the carve, but my primary dice is a 1. I don't have enough shift. I would need 3 points of shift to bring this to a 4 to succeed. For the second maneuver, it's even worse. I'd need 4 points on the primary and 1 point on the secondary to achieve my second maneuver. So shift can help, but it is not an automatic success. Yeah? It can help you to shift the dice up or down, but depending on the maneuvers you choose, it's obviously going to be easier or harder to shift to the numbers you want. Now, you are not the only one who has shift. Your enemies are also going to have shift values. Now, at lower levels, typically, there will be less shift than you, but they will have the ability to modify their rolls as well. And again, they have maneuvers with specific dice results and damage values. What if you roll exactly what you need? So if you roll this and you don't need shift, well, congratulations, you do what we call an exact strike. And for that, you do your damage plus your shift value because you didn't use it. Haha! Now, if you only use 1 point of shift, you don't get the extra shift to add to your damage. No. That only happens when you get an exact strike, when you roll exactly the right dice. And again, it has to follow the primary and secondary dice. So that doesn't count. Now, every weapon, every enemy has maneuvers that possess different dice combinations. Also, armor. Armor will also have dice values that can prevent or reduce damage. Now, with your opponents, your enemies, the creatures, they will have what's called interrupts. For example, here, the guard. Shield block on secondary 3s and 5s. So if your attack, and you hit with an attack that has a secondary 3 or 5, in our case, the carve has a 3, it would actually do -1 damage. Yeah, if it matches. But for your character, you are going to have armor that also has dice values here. And if the opponent rolls those dice, primaries or secondaries are specified, then again, you will have a modifier to their damage on you. Now, we do have to choose a starting piece of armor. So, starting armor, I'm going to choose, I'll probably choose the jerkin. Now, you can wear any combination of armor to a maximum of 3 pieces, but not duplicates or items that cover the same part of the body. So for my piece of armor, I'm just going to choose a jerkin. I can get better pieces later, thank God. Now, this is 1 value here, which is a 4 and -1 damage. Now, if you only have a single dice for your armor, that applies to primary dice. So when your opponent rolls a 4 as their primary dice, then your jerkin does protect you. If they roll a 4 on their secondary, then that doesn't apply. Later on, you may be able to find or buy some better armor which has 2 dice values, which will correspond to primary or secondary. And if either of them match your opponent's attack dice, then you get your modifier. Lovely jubbly. So that's the armor done. We'll see again. We'll go through the combat system again soon as we go through the dungeon. Okay, so we also start with flint and steel, a lantern, 3 rations, a pouch, wax sealing kit for potion bombs, and a large backpack. Okay, you've also been taught the arcane runes of magic and can read magic scrolls. Select 1 scroll from the starting table. Okay, so I'm going to choose what we've got here. Increased discipline and magical focus, damaging attack, combat ability, destroys 1 lock or armor-related interrupt. I mean, combat would be very useful and attack would be very useful, but destroying a lock could actually help me, or armor-related interrupt. So yeah, sometimes it says here, look, shield block on secondary 3s and 5s. Now, I could use that scroll of melt metal to basically destroy that interrupt, so they can't use it by basically destroying their shield. So I think this one's probably more useful. So I'm going to have the magic scroll of melt metal. Now, scrolls are not automatic. You have to roll to see if they work. But again, we'll see that as we do the dungeon. So scroll of melt metal. Let's come over here. Scroll of melt metal destroys 1 lock or armor piece. Yeah. Okay. Done, done, done. Now, to do scrolls, you have to roll, again, d6. If you roll a double, it works. But you can use your discipline modifier to shift the dice. So the shift value is for combat. The discipline can be used to shift the dice when you're doing things like spells. Some of the higher level spells or scrolls have dispel doubles, which essentially gives you an extra chance of failure where one of the doubles doesn't actually work for that scroll because it's more complex. Potion, we have a potion of healing, and that heals back 5 health points when we use it. Again, these are one use only. Now, on the character sheet, you will notice that there are specific numbers of spaces. So for example, here for potions, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces here. That's your capacity. You can carry 5 potions, 3 scrolls. You can wear a maximum of 3 armor pieces and have, at later levels, a maximum of 3 maneuvers. So you are limited in terms of the spaces on the character sheet. I filled out the items, the starting items we have here. I've put the pouch down a little bit because I can then actually write information about what it contains later on, and 3 rations. Now, the game has more rules and systems, but I don't want to explain all of them here. We'll see a lot of them as we actually play through the game, and that's why I do instructional playthroughs. But there are ways to leave the dungeon, go back to town to heal, to trade. There are gods, where you can call for aid. There are, again, you can make potions yourself once you find the ingredients. There's a lot of things you can actually do in this game. Right, so how to generate and start a dungeon? Well, first of all, you'll need some graph paper. Rather than having the standard graph paper, having the one with the dots is actually better. It's easier to draw on. So in this game, all rooms are rectangular in shape just to make things simple. You choose an outer boundary for the dungeon level, which shows the maximum limits for your dungeon growth and design. Toby recommends a minimum of 20 by 20 squares. We'll be using 30 by 20 for ours to give it a bit more room. So we will draw the boundaries on our map. So this is our map boundary. Essentially, our level, our dungeon level, will have to fit within this area here. Now, you will pick a starting position. Let's say, for example, we want to start roughly center. So we'll start here, for example. This is us coming in. To generate each area that you encounter, you will roll 2d6. Again, ideally different colors. We will allocate 1 to be the x-axis and 1 to be the y-axis, and this will give you the dimensions for the next encountered area. You will then roll a third d6 to find out how many exits. Now, you can roll these together as long as you remember which one's which. So I'm going to make a note up here just in case I forget, because I am old, I do tend to forget. So black equals X, white equals Y, blue equals exits. And this is level 1 for Bjorn, our adventurer. Right. So for example, we would roll black is our X, white is our Y, and then this references our X's. Now, this doesn't actually mean the number of exits. You have to check the table. Oops, and I just mucked up my dice, didn't I? I can't remember. I think this is a 5. I'll roll it again. 5. Yeah, it would have been ones. I could have foreseen that. Why don't we just use this? This is easier. Right. So this is basically telling me that the room that I'm encountering is 5 by 1, which is a corridor. Because one of the axes is a 1, it basically relates to a corridor. We can't have that for the starting room. For the entrance room has to be between 6 to 12 squares in area, and it has 3 exits, which are all archways. So for the entrance room, you don't have to roll for exits, but you do have to roll for dimensions. But this is illegal because it's a corridor, not for the entrance room. So what we'll do is we'll just re-roll. Can't do. So this would be a 6x6 room, which would be 36 squares, too big. So we'll just take the biggest we can have, which is 12. So the entrance room is 12, a maximum of 12 square area. So 12 would be a 3x4. So we will draw, and it has 3 exits as standard. So this is our starting room, our entrance. It has 3 exits by default, and the exits are all archways. Now, there are different types of exit. You can have metal doors, reinforced doors, wooden doors, stone slabs, portcullis, curtains, or archways. With doors, you need to check whether they're locked. Portcullis, you need to find the lever. So yeah, archways are just totally open. So this is our starting area here. What else? In some additional rules for rolling up rooms. If you roll doubles, except for double 6, you roll again and add the values. So for example, if I rolled double 4, I actually have to roll again, X, Y, again, stating which ones are which, and then add to those values. So this would be a 7x6 room. If you roll a double 6, you don't roll again, you just take it as a 6x6. But if you roll a 5x5 and then you roll, yeah, that. If you then rolled that, that would be the maximum size of a room. That would be 11x11. My God, that's huge. That would take up, okay, we're not going to think about that. So if you roll doubles, except for double 6, you roll again and add the X and Y values to the first rolls. If the room has a total area of 6 squares or less, it's considered a small room and it has a separate table to roll on. If the room has a total area of 32 squares or larger, it's considered a large room and again has a different table. Otherwise, you roll on the standard table to determine what's in there. If one of the dice is a 1, it's a corridor, not a room. You don't roll for content, but you do still have to roll for number of exits. When you get to the last room on your level, or when there's nowhere else to go, you place stairs going down to the next level. So let's draw up our first room. Choose which way. I think we're going to go, and again, as you just give yourself a little bit of space, it's sometimes a good idea just to give yourself 1 square of connector. Don't have to, but just makes it a little bit spaced. Okay, so for example, let's go left for our first room. So we'll go down this corridor and we want to find out what is in the next area here. So we're going to roll our 3 dice. X, Y, exits. Right, so we get a 4x4. Oh, it's a double. So, red is X, yellow is Y. It is a 9x7 room with a 5. So 5 for exits means 2 exits. Now these are in addition to the one you came in. So we've got a 9x, which is this way, and a 6y. So 6y, okay, we're just going to go right up against the border here. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it is 9x. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it comes up to here. It also has 2 other exits. So we're going to do, let's do 1 exit here up to there. Zonk. And then it's going to have 2 exits. They can't be in the same, you can't have a wall with more than 1 exit. So we'll put the other exit here, like that. There you go. Now, We don't know what type of exits these are, whether they're wooden doors, until we roll up what is the room content. Now, this room is 6 by 9, which is what, 54 square area. So this is actually classified as a large room. So we're going to have to roll on the large room table for this, but I'm going to label this as room 1. I'm going to just make notes up here as to what's going to be in the room. So it is a large room, so we have to find the large table. So we're looking for, get rid of these now. We're looking for level 1, level 2 tables. We're looking for level 1 large rooms, page 40, which is here. So level 1 large rooms, 32 squares or larger. We have to roll. Okay, so in this case, it's a 2d6. So we roll, we get 7. It's a temple. So the rooms have a number of columns. You've got the room type, which is the name, a description, the exit types, and whether it's unique. If it's unique, you can only have 1 per level. Sometimes it will say a certain number with the unique, where you can only have it if a certain percentage of the level's already been explored, for example. But this is not the case. So we have a temple. Just write it here. Temple, right. Dark murals line the walls. Empty pews form 2 lines. Chandeliers loaded with lit candles hang above. Behind a pulpit stands a figure who attacks. Roll on L1R-1. Okay. Exits are archways, so there are no doors, they are open. It is unique, so I need to put here unique. So we can't actually find another temple on this level. Okay, so we're going to be rolling on L1R at -1. Okay, so we're inside a temple. We've got 2 rows of pews, I think it said. So we're going to have some pews here. Got a pulpit, various tapestries and whatever. Various tapestries of whatever god or whatever is going to be in there. Right, so behind the pulpit we find L1. Okay, L1R. Okay, so L1R is level 1 religious enemy, and we get a -1 to the roll. So we're rolling a d6 -1. We get a 2 -1 is 1. Crazed preacher. So we're fighting a crazed preacher. All right, let's get the card for him and begin combat. Right, we've got a crazed preacher, level 1, 4 hit points. He's worth 5 XP. Now to go up to level 2, my character is going to need a total of 100 XP. Okay. So shift of +1. Treasure. Okay, so if we defeat him, we have to roll an RPT1 to find out treasure. He's got an interrupt, Bible block on primary 4s. Now, that would mean that if I do a carve, he would actually block and it would do less damage. It would be a -2 damage. Oh no. So my carves against this guys are going to be at D6 -3. Oh, that's not good at all. He's got 1 maneuver, 1 attack, which is a 4-3 wild scratch, D6 -3. Okay. Spreading their vile words in amongst the inhabitants of the dungeon. These crazed robed preachers are full of fury. They scream and rush towards you. Now at the bottom, you also have what happens when they roll a double 1 or a double 6. A double 1 is a mishap, something happens, and double 6 is their prime attack roll. Now when you roll a double 1, you always miss. If you roll a double 6, you perform a prime attack. You select any one of your maneuvers, okay? You add your shift as well, and it can't be interrupted by their defense. So rolling a double 6 is good, a double 1 is bad. A double 1's always a miss. You can't shift it to something else. So we have our enemy, a crazed preacher is inside the temple and charges at us as we enter. We're going to need our fatigue and shift adjustment platform. Yeah, this card here. Now, you'll need to place 1 dice on the combat fatigue, starting at 1. Every turn it goes up. And the shift adjustment dice we're not going to use just yet, so I'll just put it to one side. Now, I'll also leave a bit of space here because the preacher starts off on 4 hit points. Okay. Now, here's the clever thing about this combat system, and the thing that I really like. As you increase in turns, okay, as turn 1 goes by, you go to turn 2. Then, if you're still alive, go to turn 3. Once it gets to turn 4, and again, this is just a timer, you then get a shift adjustment dice. And what that represents is everybody gets an extra +1 shift. When it goes to the 5th round of combat, everyone will be getting a +2 shift bonus. You and the enemies. And if the combat goes to round 6, everybody's getting a +3. Now, this is the maximum. So if it then goes to a 7th round, 8th round, 9th round, doesn't matter, everyone's still only getting a +3 shift. So it kind of represents people getting tired, leaving openings and things like that on both sides, not just you or the enemies. It's for both. So at the moment we don't have any shift adjustment, but we are coming to round 1. So again, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put this and this on here as we do the combat. Right, so combat fatigue, it's turn 1. Now, unless the rules or the encounter says otherwise, you always go first. So we are going to roll. Primary is going to be blue, secondary is going to be white. So we attack first. I'm looking for 4, 3, or 5, 2. All right, now I need a +3 to shift to my carve, which I can't do. So I can't actually shift enough to make this a hit. To get my low swish, I actually need 4, 5. I need a shift of 5. So I miss my first attack. What a surprise. The crazed preacher hits back. He has 4, 3. So again, primary is blue. He gets 5, 6. He's got a shift of only +1. So he can shift that down to a 4, but he needs another 3 to bring this down to a 3. So he also misses. So that's round 1 done. We go to round 2. I attack. I get 2, 3. Now, I've got a +2 shift, so I can make this 1. Where is it? 2. So I can shift to the 4, 3. I can't shift to the 5, 2. I don't have enough. But I do the 4, 3, which is a carve, which means I do d6 minus 1 damage. However, he has an interrupt on primary 4s of -2 damage. So it's actually d6 minus 3. That's really not good. Yay! Unless I get that. So I rolled a 6. Now another thing, when you roll damage, a 6 always does at least 1 damage, yeah? So I'm doing d6 minus 3. So I actually do 3 damage on this guy. So he's down to 1 hit point. He's almost dead, but he's still alive. He hits back. We get a 2, 6. So he's got 4, 3. So he's going to need a 3, 4. He's going to need a shift of 5 to hit me, which he can't because he's only got +1. So he also misses. Go to round 3. I attack. 6, 4. I can't do it. I'm going to need a 1, 2, 3 shift here, or 1, 2, 3. I need a 3 shift to get either of those. I can't do it, so I miss. The preacher strikes back. 4, 2. Oh, he can do this. So he rolls a 4, 2. He's got a +1 shift to make this into a 3. So he hits me with a wild scratch. Now, my armor is on primary 4s. So I do have a modifier of -1. Thank God for that. So he's doing D6 minus 4. So he does nothing. He hits my armor instead, luckily for me. It is now turn 4. So everybody is getting a +1 shift. So now my shift now is +3. His shift is +2. I attack first. I only need to do 1 damage on him. So I get a 5-4, which is good. I've got a +3 shift now. I can actually bring this down 2 points to make it a 5-2, which means I hit with the low swish D6 +1. His interrupt blocks on primary 4s, which doesn't affect this one. This is a 5. So I'm doing D6 +1 damage. I get maximum damage again. 7 damage. He's only got 1 hit point left, so he goes down to -6. Rip! Now we do defeat him, so we get 5 XP. Still got a ways to go to get to the 100. So I defeated him. Treasure, roll on RPT1. So RPT1 for treasure. Now the room itself didn't have anything. One book, tables book. The room itself didn't actually have anything for treasure. Level 1, large temple. So yeah, there's nothing here that says to roll for any other kinds of treasure. So we just get the treasure from the crazed preacher. So we will go to RPT1. There's no modifiers, so we're just rolling on the table. Religious pouch, table 1, 2d6. We get 4, nothing. The pouch is empty. However, we do have a pouch. So we can write another pouch on here. But that wasn't worth it, was it? And that is the first room done. We've gained 5 experience. We've gained a pouch, and we've explored a temple. Now we go on to the next room.